Hello and welcome back to CGB Games. My name is Cameron, and today we're going to dive into the first development blog of Escape from Violet Institute. I thought I would start off this entire series with a more enjoyable part of game development in my own opinion, environment art. Throughout the 3D portion of the game, there are these keycard receivers and givers that you can see here. As it stands, they are only placed when they are needed for the player to progress, i.e. when the player basically clicks on them to progress to the next level. I didn't really like this layout of them only being used when it was for a narrative reason, as I feel like the player only sees them when they're needed, which sort of takes the player out of the game and makes the environment look less believable. And having the environment look believable and everything seem real is very integral to the type of game I'm wanting to make, which is a horror game. So my first task here is to place both of these around the maps. There is a slight issue with this, as having many of these dotted around the map might make the player not think to look at them when they are needed. So one way to go around this is I've used the same blue cyan sort of outline that I've used in all the pickups that you can find in the game. So after placing them on all levels, which took quite a while longer than I anticipated, I can move on to the next thing that I've got to do. This next thing is the on-screen blood effects, so the UI elements, basically to help show when the player is hit. So as it stands at the minute, when a player gets hit, your player will be launched off in direction and you will make a pained grunt. But I feel like there's still some more feedback I can give the player to know that they've fucked up and they take some damage. So before I dive into this, I've decided that I want it to be very subtle and not really noticeable unless you're paying attention. You don't really notice it, but you'd notice if it was missing, if that makes any sense. What I don't want to achieve is what you can see here, where it just looks completely ridiculous and just takes you away from the game, basically. The first step to doing this is making a subtle red ring around the screen that shows if the player is hit and permanently shows when the player is close to death. This is really important, as later on in the game there is parts where you might not be able to see the UI element of your health, so the player needs to they need to know that they're on low health without actually being able to see their UI, which this will do quite well because they'll have a bit of red around the screen to let the player know they're on low health. So after the border of red is done around the screen, the next bit to do will be the little dots on the screen that only show up when you've been hit and then just fade out. And they're going to be really subtle, but hopefully they'll look quite nice. So I started out by opening Photoshop. Essentially what I did was just have a brush on low opacity and did a sort of a circumference around the edge of the screen and lowered it until it looks nice in game. I did this again, but then made it closer tight to the center, so that now there's two different versions that can play depending on how little health the player has. I then took the same brush and put little dots on the screen, just randomly in different places, and made about 7 of these. And I liked how they looked. You basically used the same brush as before, and it worked quite well. After these were all made and I had all the PNG files, I just brought them back into Unreal, hooked them up with all 3 playable characters, and then just fiddled around with it to make sure they were all hooked up to the right nodes, so that when you got hit, it would follow through and display one of these, and it would momentarily check every time the player got hurt. It would check how much health the player is on, and if it's below a certain point, it will start to display a widget. If it's below another certain point, it will display both widgets all the time, and then if it rises above that point again, it will get rid of all widgets. And this is very simple, very easy to do. Didn't take too long to do, which was nice. The other job took longer, funnily enough, and it's in there, and I'm happy with it. The next task is more of a boring task, if you ask me, but it's one that needs to be done. On level 27, there are no voice lines implemented and no objective markers implemented. I say objective markers, I mean basically an objective thing that comes on the top of the screen. Basically very similar to the one in Outlast. These are implemented quite easily. It's just a trigger box when your player walks over it. the objective will show on the top of the screen and fade out, and then after that the objective can be seen in the menu if you press pause. These are made in Photoshop again, really simply. I've got a template already done from doing earlier objectives, so all I have to do is set in the new words and save it as something else and implement it. Yep, so that's all the voice lines and objectives implemented on level 27. I can say I'm happy with the progress made in this first devlog, and I think I'll leave it there for now. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you want to see more, and I shall see you all next time.